I used to believe that memory was a fortress, solid, dependable, built brick by brick from the moments of our lives. My job was a testament to that belief. For 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, I was a digital archivist, a janitor of forgotten data. I worked from a silent, climate-controlled home office, a sterile white room with a single window that looked out onto a quiet suburban street I rarely set foot on. My employer was a massive, faceless corporation, a leviathan that had been swallowing smaller companies for decades. My solitary task was to sift through the digital ghosts of these acquired businesses, defunct email servers from .com busts, forgotten cloud storage accounts holding nothing but pirated MP3s and grainy photos from office parties, ancient SCSI hard drives that whirred and clicked like tiny dying animals. I was a digital archaeologist, meticulously preserving the mundane history of corporate America. My days were a blur of invoices, project plans, half-finished PowerPoint presentations, and interoffice memos about stolen yogurts from the breakroom fridge. It was crushingly boring, meticulous to the point of absurdity, and, most importantly, predictable. Every file had a place, a timestamp, a logical reason for being. It was a world of order, and I was its steward. Until the day I found Archive 7. The acquisition was from a small, obscure data mapping firm from the early 2000s called TerraVision. Their servers were a disaster, a digital rat's nest of corrupted files, nested folders that went 20 levels deep, and nonsensical naming conventions.
It looked like it had been abandoned in a hurry. I spent a week just trying to make sense of the directory tree, a process that felt less like archaeology and more like untangling 1,000 knotted fishing lines. Most of it was junk, fragmented geological survey data, half-rendered topographical maps of places that didn't exist, endless spreadsheets of meaningless numbers. But buried deep within a folder cryptically named internal_ref was a series of password-protected archives, labeled simply 1 through 6. They were standard fare, containing employee records, payroll, and some surprisingly bitter emails about management. The passwords were all laughably simple, variations of the company name and the year. But then there was a 7th file, Archive 7. It was different. It sat there in the File Explorer, visually alien. It wasn't a .zip or a .rar or any other recognizable compression format. It had a proprietary, unknown file extension, .tvx. My system flagged it with a generic blank page icon, unable to generate a thumbnail. The file size was the first true anomaly, a single, solitary kilobyte, 1 KB. It was practically nothing. A stray icon file on your desktop is bigger than that. Yet it was dated a week into the future. That was the first red flag, the first tremor in the foundations of my logical world. A file from the future. It had to be a system glitch, I told myself, my fingers hovering over the delete key. A corrupted timestamp caused by a server migration. Computers make mistakes. It's just a ghost in the machine, a meaningless fragment of orphaned data. My training, my entire professional ethos screamed at me to log it as a corrupted asset and move on. There were thousands of other files waiting for my attention, but I didn't. That single kilobyte felt heavier than all the terabytes of data I had processed that year. Curiosity, that fatal human flaw, took over. With a deep sense of trepidation, I renamed the file extension to .txt, the digital equivalent of hitting a strange pulsing rock with another rock just to see what's inside. The password prompt that appeared was not the standard system dialog.
It was a stark, black, full-screen window with a single, unblinking green cursor. No hints, no forgot password link, just a void waiting for an answer. The simplicity of it was unnerving. I typed the usual suspects: TerraVision 2001, admin, password, 123456, internal reference. Nothing. The cursor just blinked back at me, patient and mocking. I spent 2 hours trying to crack it, my meticulous workflow completely derailed by this 1 kilobyte enigma. The logical, ordered world I inhabited had been punctured by this single point of illogic. Frustration began to curdle into a hot, prickly obsession. This tiny file was a lock, and I couldn't stand the thought of not finding the key. I started digging into the other archives again, this time with a frantic energy. I wasn't just archiving, I was hunting. I read through every line of every email in Archive 4, searching not for corporate data, but for personal clues, for any hint about Project Internal Ref. I found nothing but banal chatter about deadlines and office birthdays. I felt like I was losing my mind, chasing a ghost. Then, in the metadata of an old blurry image file showing the 5-person TerraVision team at a Christmas party, I found a comment, a single line of text buried deep in the EXIF data, a field no one ever uses. For all we build, the key is what we leave behind. It was so pretentious, so cryptic, the kind of pseudo-philosophical nonsense that programmers from that era loved. But the words echoed, key and leave behind. What does a data mapping company leave behind? Maps, data points, coordinates, legacy. I tried legacy, the cursor blinked. I tried maps, the cursor blinked. I typed coordinates, the black box vanished. I was in. A plain text file opened, and what I saw made the hairs on my arms stand up. It wasn't a document, it was a log, a script. The first line was a timestamp, dated for the next day at 9:17 a.m., and what followed was a clinical, third-person description of me. Subject sits at desk, left hand lifts to scratch behind right ear, sips coffee from a blue mug. Gaze shifts from primary monitor to secondary. Cursor hovers over archive 7. Muttered phrase detected. No way. It was a transcript of the immediate future. My future. I felt a cold dread wash over me, a feeling of being watched not by a person, but by time itself. I glanced at the clock on my monitor. 9:15 a.m. I had 2 minutes. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the silent room. This was an elaborate joke. It had to be a prank left by some long-gone programmer with a twisted, cruel sense of humor. I wasn't going to play along. I would not scratch my ear. I would not sip my coffee. I sat there, my hands flat on my desk, my body rigid, my knuckles white. I was in control. The clock ticked to 9:17, and then a maddening, undeniable itch bloomed just behind my right ear. It was excruciating. I tried to ignore it, gritting my teeth, but it was a fire, a needle, unconscious, automatic. My left hand rose to scratch it. The moment my fingers touched my skin, I froze, a wave of nausea rolling through me. I had done it. My eyes, as if pulled by a malevolent string, darted to my blue coffee mug, a familiar comfort that now felt like a prop in someone else's play. My mouth was dry. I needed a drink. I took a sip. My gaze, against my will, shifted to my second monitor, where the folder containing the renamed Archive 7 was still open, and I whispered it, the words tumbling out of my mouth before I could stop them. No way. I spent the rest of that day in a paranoid fugue, a prisoner in my own home. I closed the file, then opened it again a dozen times, rereading the few lines of text as if they held some magical key to understanding. They didn't. The log continued for another 20 entries, detailing my morning with the unnerving, detached accuracy of a security camera transcript. It described me closing the blinds at 9:25 a.m. It described me pacing my office, walking from the desk to the window and back exactly 3 times. It even noted the moment I dropped a pen and, instead of picking it up, kicked it under the desk out of sheer frustration. It ended at 11:34 a.m. with the line, "Subject closes file. Session terminated." It was a perfect one-to-one record of my actions, all written down before they happened. The question of how was a terrifying, unscalable mountain of impossibility. Was this a program, a predictive algorithm of unimaginable complexity, or something else? Something that defied rational explanation, something that operated on a level of reality I couldn't comprehend. The next morning, I hesitated for a full hour before turning on my computer. What if the file was still there? What if there was a new one? The fear was a physical thing, a sour taste in my mouth, a weight in my gut. But the mortgage doesn't pay itself. My job, once a source of boring stability, now felt like a minefield. I logged in, my hands trembling slightly, and navigated back to the TerraVision server with a sense of grim inevitability. Archive 7 was gone, but in its place was a new file, Archive 8, dated for today. This time I didn't hesitate.
The obsession had fully eclipsed the fear. It was no longer just a creepy file, it was a puzzle, a challenge. My puzzle. I opened it. The password was the same. Coordinates. The log inside was longer, much longer. It started with my morning routine, just as before. It knew I'd skip breakfast. It knew I'd open the file immediately. The transcript ran for the entire workday, line by line, a script for a play I was apparently doomed to perform. I read it all, my initial terror slowly morphing into a strange, detached defiance. The log said at 10:22 a.m., a bird would hit my office window.
At 12:45 p.m., my boss, a man I hadn't spoken to in months, would call me for a pointless video meeting. At 3:12 p.m., I would spill coffee on my keyboard. I decided to fight it. I was not a puppet. When 10:20 a.m. rolled around, I stood up and pulled the thick blackout blinds shut with a sharp tug, plunging the room into semi-darkness. No bird is going to hit a window it can't see, I muttered to the empty room, a smug sense of victory washing over me. I sat back down, watching the clock. 10:22. Silence. A grin spread across my face. I had won. Then came the thud. It was loud, sickening, and it came from the living room. My blood ran cold. I sprinted out of my office. There, on the glass of my large sliding patio door, was a feathered smudge, a grisly sunburst of impact. A small, broken sparrow lay on the deck outside, its neck at an impossible angle. The log hadn't specified which window. It just knew. The universe, it seemed, had a way of correcting for my defiance. I went back to my desk, defeated and shaking. The call came at 12:45. My boss, Arthur, droning on about synergy and Q4 deliverables. I spent 10 minutes nodding along to his corporate jargon, my mind a million miles away. And at 3:10, I deliberately took my coffee mug and placed it on the floor, under my desk. There was no possible way I could spill it on the keyboard now. At 3:12, a sudden violent muscle spasm, a Charlie horse of incredible intensity, shot through my right calf. My leg kicked out uncontrollably, striking the underside of my desk with a loud crack.
My spare monitor, perched precariously on a stack of books, wobbled and tipped over, crashing directly onto my keyboard and sending a shower of plastic and shattered keys across the desk. This grotesque charade continued for 3 more days. Each morning brought a new archive, a new script for my day. Archive 9, Archive 10, Archive 11. My attempts to deviate from the log grew more desperate, more frantic, and more futile. If the log said I'd eat a sandwich for lunch, I'd try to order a pizza. The delivery driver would get a flat tire. The power would go out just as I was entering my credit card details. The app would inexplicably crash every time I tried to confirm the order. I once tried to defy a prediction that I would listen to classical music by blasting heavy metal. My high-end noise-canceling headphones chose that exact moment to die, the battery giving out without warning. A moment later, my neighbor, a quiet old man I barely knew, started doing yard work while blasting a Vivaldi concerto from a portable speaker. I was living in a cage of predestination, and the bars were getting tighter with every passing moment. My world shrank to the size of my office, and my reality was dictated by a 1 kilobyte text file. The worst part was the crushing, absolute loneliness of it. Who could I tell? Who would ever believe me? Hey, I found a magic text file that tells my future and I can't escape it. I'd be committed before I finished the sentence. So I lived with the knowledge, a silent, screaming passenger in my own body, watching my free will be exposed as a complete and utter illusion. On the 5th day, I opened Archive 12. My hands were steady now, my panic replaced by a hollow, ringing emptiness. The log was different. It was short, terrifyingly short. It detailed my morning with the usual clinical precision, but it ended at 10 a.m. There was only one entry after that, a single line, timed for 10:15 a.m. 10:15 a.m. Subject stands, opens office door. Hallway is dark. Subject proceeds into hallway. That was it. On the 5th day, I opened Archive 12. My hands were steady now, my panic replaced by a hollow, ringing emptiness. The log was different. It was short, terrifyingly short. It detailed my morning with the usual clinical precision, but it ended at 10 a.m. There was only one entry after that, a single line, timed for 10:15 a.m. 10:15 a.m. Subject stands, opens office door. Hallway is dark. Subject proceeds into hallway. That was it. Nothing more. The ambiguity was 1,000 times worse than any specific prediction. The hallway is dark? Why would it be dark? It was a bright, clear morning. And why did the log stop there? What happens in the hallway that terminates the session? My mind raced, conjuring images of home invaders, of cosmic horrors, of simply ceasing to exist. The minutes ticked by. 9:55, 9:56. The mundane entries of the log played out like a funeral dirge. I adjusted my chair. I cleared my throat. I tapped between two windows for no reason. The script was being followed. The dread was a physical presence in the room, suffocating me. I felt like an actor on a stage, waiting for his final cue, knowing the next scene was the one where the curtain falls for good. 9:59. I could hear my own breathing, loud and ragged in the quiet room. I could hear the frantic thump of my own heart. The clock on my monitor hit 10, and the world died. The power in my house cut out. Not a flicker, not a brownout. It was a sudden, absolute cessation of all electricity.
My monitors went black, the hum of my computer died, the lights went out. The silence was instantaneous and profound, a physical pressure in my ears. My office, which usually bathed in the morning sun, was now cast in a gloomy, gray twilight. The script. It was all part of the script. The power outage was just another plot point. After sitting in the unnerving silence for what felt like an hour, I glanced at my watch, its analog face still working in the dim light. 10:14. My heart felt like it was going to beat its way out of my chest. It was time. I had a choice, a real one this time. I could stay in my office, I could barricade the door, I could refuse to play my part. But the memory of the sparrow, of the spilled coffee, of the headphones, of every single failed rebellion echoed in my mind. What good would it do? If I didn't walk out that door, would the door walk to me? Would the wall simply dissolve? I was tired of fighting. I was tired of being the rat in the maze. Resigned, my body infused with a strange calm, I rose from my chair. My legs felt like lead, but I moved with a deliberate grace. I walked to my office door and placed my hand on the cool metal of the knob. I turned it. It opened with a soft click. I looked out. The hallway was dark. Not just dark from the power outage. It was an unnatural, oppressive blackness, a darkness that seemed to have texture, to be a physical thing. It didn't just occupy the space, it consumed it, swallowing the gray light that spilled from my office window.
It was a void, and the log said I was to proceed into it. I took one last shuddering breath, and I stepped out of my office into the dark. The moment I crossed the threshold, the world vanished. The darkness was absolute and immediate. I couldn't see my own hand an inch in front of my face. The air turned instantly cold, still, and carried the faint, sterile scent of ozone, like the air after a lightning strike in the sealed room. Instinctively, I reached back for the door to my office, for the familiar reality I had just left behind. My hand met only empty, chilly space. I turned around, frantically waving my arms in a circle. Nothing. The door, my office, my entire world was gone. I was suspended in a silent, black void. Panic, cold and sharp as a shard of glass, pierced through my resignation. I shouted, a raw, desperate cry, but the sound died instantly, absorbed by the oppressive, sound-dampening emptiness. There was no echo, no reverberation. It was like shouting into a pillow made of nothing. I don't know how long I was there, adrift in that silent, featureless non-place. Time had ceased to be a measurable concept. It could have been seconds, or it could have been a lifetime. My panic eventually burned itself out, leaving behind a profound and soul-crushing exhaustion, a sense of being utterly and completely erased. This was it. This was what was in the hallway. Not a monster, not an assailant with a knife. Just the end, the final keystroke, the end of everything. My existence deleted as easily as a temporary file. I thought about the archives, TerraVision. What had they been mapping? The physical world, or something else entirely? Had they stumbled upon the source code of reality itself, created a program that didn't just map data, but dictated it? Was I just a bug they had decided to quarantine and delete? Was my entire life, my consciousness, nothing more than a few lines of anomalous code in their system? Then, a light, a single, impossibly small pinprick of white light, far in the non-distance. It wasn't growing brighter. It was just there. Hope, an instinct I thought had been scoured from my soul, flared weakly in my chest.
I started moving towards it. I don't know if I was walking or floating or falling. There was no ground beneath my feet, no air rushing past my face, just a sense of forward momentum, a desperate pulling towards that single point of reference in the infinite black. As I got closer, the light began to take shape. It wasn't a pinprick. It was a rectangle, a doorway, outlined in brilliant white against the crushing black. With a final surge of effort I didn't know I possessed, I lunged towards it, tumbling through the frame as if breaking the surface of water. I landed hard on a familiar carpeted floor, the impact knocking the wind out of me. The lights were on. The air hummed with the gentle whir of a computer fan. I was in my office. I scrambled to my feet, my body aching as if from a great fall. Everything was exactly as I had left it. The cold mug on the desk, the blinds shut tight. My watch, when I looked at it, read 10:16 a.m. I had been gone for a minute, or had I been gone at all? I stumbled to my computer. The power was on. The screen glowed with life. I hadn't lost it. It had been taken and then returned. I frantically typed in my password, my fingers fumbling on the keys. I had to see. I had to know. I navigated to the TerraVision server, to the internal_ref folder. It was empty. All of it. The archives 1 through 12, the corrupted data, the Christmas party photo, everything was gone, wiped clean. There was just a single new file, sitting there as if it had always been. It was a text document named readme.txt. My hand trembled as I double-clicked it. It contained a single chilling sentence. Archive process complete. Subject reintegrated. Thank you for your cooperation. I haven't been able to bring myself to delete that empty folder. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, I open it and just stare at that single readme file. My life is normal again, predictable, mundane. I go to work, I pay my bills, I file my data. But the fortress of my memory is shattered, its bricks turned to dust. I now live with the cold, unshakable knowledge that my reality is a fragile construct, a script that was written, performed, and then deleted. I am a ghost who was allowed back into the machine, and I am left with the terrifying, unanswerable question that haunts my every waking moment. Was I the only one? Or are we all just subjects in an archive, waiting for our session to be terminated?